everyone, and welcome back to another week of Just Gay Stuff podcast. I am Jess.
And I'm Lauren.
And today is a bit of a history lesson.
Oh, I was not good at history at school.
The disappointment in your voice just now. Oh my God, Lauren, come on. No, this is a good episode. I did a lot of research.
Yes, you did tell me that you're doing a lot of research today.
This, I believe, is going to be one of those really informative episodes that people are going to go, oh, I should have known that. Or there's a bit of history there that I should have known.
All right, bring it.
This is where we're starting. So if you've seen the title of this episode, you know that we are talking about queer cinema.
Woo!
Obviously, for us growing up, no matter who we are, it is important to see something that represents us in mainstream media so that we feel seen, we feel considered, and we feel accepted. So whether that be from cultural backgrounds, disability, all the way to LGBT.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do think that this episode is a bit overdue. We probably should have started with something like this because mainstream media is something where
I guess what we're trying to do.
yeah, exactly. But I do believe that we waited because I did have to do a lot of research. I didn't want to just have an episode where we talk about our favorite queer movies, even though I think that would still be great.
That would have been cute, but I think, like you said, to have all that representation, you wanted to do it properly. So
I do
have
want
that
to do
research.
it properly. Yeah, definitely. And look, I learned a lot of things while I was researching this episode. There are a lot of facts about queer cinema that this episode really has the opportunity to pass those facts on to everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited because I really feel like you will get a lot out of this episode because you like movies as much as I do.
I do. I love movies. Movies is my escapism.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's why we want all the queer representation in them, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to start off talking about the very first hint towards homosexuality in cinema.
Ooh.
It dates all the way back to 1895.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so not as like current as we might think.
No, wow.
And it is in a movie that was commonly known as The Gay Brothers.
Really?
And all it showed was two men dancing together.
Oh.
Nothing sexual, nothing intimate
Well,
further
it was
than that.
intimate.
Yeah, but it was just purely a dance.
I love that. That's very romantic and super cute.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to have to go back and rewatch all these things that you're just about to teach me
Well,
about.
they are quite old movies. You know how I feel about a black and white film, Lauren.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, I did not watch The Wizard of Oz because it started in black and white. I'm terrible. I'm a heathen. Let's not get started.
I'm shaking my head for those who can't see the video.
Anyway, a few more movies worth a mention after that very first one is Charlie Chaplin's film called A Woman in 1915, where his character dresses as a female in order to trick two men into kissing him.
I think I've heard about this one actually.
Yeah, you've heard of that one?
I have.
I know that Charlie
surprisingly.
Chaplin was a bit of a character back in the day.
Yeah.
The next one was a German film which was actually done in World War I.
Really? Wow.
It was in 1919 and it was called Different from the Others.
Wow.
And it was about a gay violinist who took his life after being blackmailed by someone who knew of his sexuality and threatened to expose him.
That's so sad.
What's sad is that still happens now.
Yeah, I think that's sad, and that's something we've obviously spoken about, not necessarily on the podcast, but to ourselves or to other people in the community, that the queerness of it all is shown in a bad way.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll delve into that.
Okay.
Don't worry, we delve into that. The next one is Manslaughter in 1922. It depicted the very first kiss between two men.
Wow.
But as you can tell from the title, it wasn't a very pleasant film.
No, I was going to say, oof.
Pandora's Box in 1929 depicted possibly the very first lesbian character.
Really?
Yep. In the film, the romantic love between two female characters is said to be groundbreaking for the time.
I've never seen Pandora's Box.
Time to look at it. The last one to mention here is Morocco in 1930, which features a lesbian kiss from a cabaret singer dressed in a suit.
Ooh.
It was the very first lesbian kiss to appear in cinema.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So now enters that really annoying thing called the Hays Code.
A Hays Code.
In 1934, there was a code put in place called the Hays Code that actually made queerness in film illegal.
What?
Yep. The justification was if motion pictures present stories that will affect lives for the better, they can become the most powerful force for the improvement of mankind. It was based on three principles. No picture shall be produced that will lower the moral standards of those who see it. The audience should never be thrown to the side of crime, wrongdoing, evil, or sin. Correct standards of life, subject only to the requirements of drama and entertainment, shall be presented. Law, natural or human, shall not be ridiculed, nor shall sympathy be created for a violation. The whole code actually forbade the following. I'm just going to list them.
Yeah, what?
You weren't allowed to show nudity, suggestive dances, blasphemy, the ridicule of religion, illegal drug use, venereal disease, interracial relationships, childbirth, detailed depictions of crime. This included acts of violence, including lockpicking, safecracking, or the mixing of chemicals to make explosives.
What?
Any words stronger than the word damn. And sexual perversion, which unfortunately is what Queer Stories fell under at that time.
That's crazy.
Imagine if that was cinema now. Imagine if you couldn't see half of those things. Imagine how
a lot of people be out of jobs.
Netflix would have 5 movies.
Yeah, there'd be nothing on there.
But isn't that crazy? Like, these people's lives were literally, like, we know that homosexuality has been illegal for a lot of time and in a lot of different countries and a lot of different cultural backgrounds and societies and all that. But to not even be able to depict it in film, which essentially is false anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy that you weren't even allowed to show it there.
That's so sad.
This code stood until 1968, so over 30 years of cinema.
What the?
Yep.
Fudge knuckles.
However,
holy shit.
You'll be glad to know this is where queer coding came into play.
Oh, we love queer coding.
Do we though?
No.
It actually has some quite negative things about it. This is why we're here to learn, everyone. This is a learning opportunity.
Just learning with just gay stuff.
It is. So for anyone who's new to all these terms that we talk about, queer coding is when something is hinted towards being gay or queer, but never explicitly said to be or confirmed to be. It's a myriad of circumstantial information that is shown to the audience that points us to come to our own conclusions. The saddest part about not being able to explicitly have queer characters was that the coding used in cinema often depended heavily on driving the stereotypes, which, as we know, can be quite detrimental to our community as a whole.
Yeah, of course it can. I think the reason I only got, and again, this goes to showing the whole cinema and the lack of representation and everything. The reason I got excited for the word queer coding was because that's all I've known.
Yeah, literally. And to have something queer was better than nothing queer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So to talk about some of the stereotypes, these included male characters that were overly flamboyant, overly effeminate, obsessed with appearance, limp-wristed, and generally depicted as the weaker rather than the stronger male. Examples of this even came down to characters like C-3PO in Star Wars.
Really?
Yep. Apparently C-3PO was very queer-coded because he's very limp-wristed and he walks very, he shuffles. He doesn't have a strong robot walk.
I don't watch that, so I would not have any clue.
I've never seen Star Wars either, but I've seen C-3PO and it's crazy to believe that.
I just learnt something just then. That's crazy.
Yeah. The female characters, on the other hand, we can I think we all know the stereotypes. They're depicted as overly masculine or strong, were not interested in dating boys, and were always the less fashionable woman in the crowd. So the article that I got a lot of this information from, which I will post in the show notes because it's a great read, also has a great doco that states the queer-coded characters and how they were used to both satisfy a queer audience for the inclusion purpose, but also satisfy the homophobic audience for the comedy or the villainization of the queer characters. Because, quote, it reinforced assumptions that anyone who deviates from gender norms must be wicked.
Really?
Yeah. Some examples given here were in Disney. So Scar from The Lion King and Jafar from Aladdin, which, to be fair, I have never ever thought about the sexuality of those characters.
No, I don't think, you've never really do think about the sexuality of those characters.
I never thought about the sexuality of a lion.
No.
But then when you think about it, all of the lions we saw were pretty straight.
I can't say that I've ever thought about the sexuality of a lion.
There were parts in that movie that were brought up, like when Timon is saying, should he distract Scar by putting on drag and doing the hula? And there's another scene where Scar says to Mufasa, in the gene pool, he wasn't the one that got the masculine features.
Yeah, that's true. I've never really thought about that, but now looking back, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So it was kind of a double-edged sword in some ways, because whilst queer coding allowed us to discreetly keep queer characters in cinema and television, it also continued to allow productions, writers and directors to keep reducing characters to the stereotype, even up until today.
That's sad.
Queer characters were always playing the gay best friend, the servant, the role secondary to the main character. Obviously not in all cases, but still there are so many. So, moving on, in 1968, the Hays Code was actually lifted due to pressure from the Catholic Church.
Oh.
Which I find hilarious,
Yeah,
because
that's ironic. What?
I thought that the Catholic Church would want to really keep that in place. So it was pressure from the Catholic Church, and it was replaced with the MPAA movie rating system. So kind of what we have today.
So that's how we got the rating system.
So that's now how you can go as a parent, oh, this is okay for my kid to watch, or this is okay for an 18 plus person to watch.
Wow.
So that's a rating system now, as opposed to just saying not allowed any of this in cinema.
I can't get over the fact that you said Catholic Church.
I know. So that, together with the Stonewall riots in 1969 and the gay rights movement, cinema actually became a lot more forward with allowing queer characters on screen.
Thank goodness for that.
However,
there's always
the devil's advocate. Unfortunately, the stereotypes then became pushed further in order to overexpose queer characters to the audience. It was no longer subtle. There were constant mentions of sexuality. It was just more that the stereotype was pushing it harder. These characters were allowed out of the closet, at least.
Yeah.
One big push, though, was after the movie Psycho. We started to see films portray their villains as cross-dressers or trans.
Really?
Which, of course, does not give the general audience positive connotations. This could be seen in Psycho itself, where Norman Bates has a very unhealthy relationship with his mother and starts to put on her clothes.
Oh.
It's also seen in the movie Sleepaway Camp in 1983, The Silence of the Lambs in 1991, and even in comedies like Ace Ventura: Pet Detective in 1994, just to name a few.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen any of.
You've not seen Silence of the Lambs? Hannibal Lecter?
I'm a baby. I don't watch those scary movies.
It's not that scary. I'll watch them with you. I think some of them are good. Anyway, queerness still to this day is still quite hidden in children's media. Like in Disney, there is a lot of coding. So as we mentioned before, I'm sure as you're all listening, you're thinking of your own characters, whether they be recent or 20 plus years old. But one gentleman, Howard Ashman, who was an out gay man, decided to really inject some queerness into the 3 main Disney films that he worked on.
Really?
These were The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and as we mentioned before, Aladdin. So quickly, out of those movies, are there any characters that spring to mind for you as being queer-coded?
Ursula.
Yeah?
But this is cheating because I know who Ursula is based
off
of.
You already know.
I already know.
Damn it!
I already know
Maybe
that
the
one.
listeners don't know though.
No, but I did know that one and I love that. But I mean, you can kind of, well, I could always tell.
How could you tell?
I don't know. I just could. Jafar, I understand. I wouldn't have thought that initially, but I can understand now that you're...
Why? Because I still can't get it, except for, I guess he dresses quite immaculately.
Very lavish robes. I don't know,
Yeah, but it's like you could say that about any monk.
I don't know, out of those 3. I do have a more recent Disney character that's queer coded.
Yeah.
Elsa from Frozen.
Yeah. And then didn't we talk about Riley from Inside Out?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people were saying that Riley was NB coded.
Because their emotions were both male and female.
Whereas if you see the mum or the dad, the mum has just female inside out emotions and the dad has just male inside out emotions.
That is ultimate queer coding that not everyone would pick up on.
No.
So yes, you are correct. In The Little Mermaid, the character of Ursula was actually modelled off a drag queen named Divine.
Yeah.
Who was named drag queen of the 20th century. And when you see pictures of Divine, you can see how they sculpted a lot of Ursula's features to resemble Divine as a drag queen.
A lot of the resemblance.
Down to wig, makeup, everything.
Everything is there, yeah.
What about Beauty and the Beast? Without me telling you, what do you think is the queer codedness of Beauty and the Beast?
Oh.
This is kind of clever in a way.
I thought it would have been like the weird relationship between Cogsworth and what's his name? Lumiere.
Yeah, maybe. That didn't come up though.
I don't know.
Okay, so in Beauty and the Beast, there are a few things that are called out as queer coded for not following social norms. So in the beginning, Bella's quite shunned by the village for being strange because she didn't consider marriage to be high on her list.
Yeah.
And she didn't fall all over Gaston like the rest of the bachelorettes.
Yeah.
LeFou, Gaston's sidekick, also portrays the gay servant or side character.
That's true. And you can tell that he's very in love with
Always
Gaston.
putting Gaston on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Yep.
I should have said that one. I had that one in my head.
You had that one? You knew it. It's also said that the song Kill the Beast was a protest song about the AIDS crisis.
Really?
Yep. How in communities we identify people or a person as a problem and we get out our pitchforks, so to speak.
Oof.
Yeah, quite heavy. And Howard, who worked on these movies, he actually died of AIDS. And that was said to be like his input into that movie.
That's really sad.
So the takeaway from all of that queer coding is that gestures of representation is not actual representation. And the problematic thing here is that where queer characters were included as villains, it only propels the story further that being queer is bad.
Yeah. I was going to say that's the bad side of it, that whilst, we're having the representation, it's not the
good
representation that you want.
Yeah. So obviously we've come a long way. Cinema and television has come a long way. We're only really talking about cinema here. We'll get into TV in a different episode. Yeah. So to date, there are many films that have openly portrayed queer characters in more than positive lights, but it's important to recognize where we've had to fight in terms of entertainment media to be seen as more than just throwaway characters or second to the main character. And now I think when we go back and watch older films, we can look out for a bit more of that queer coding. But to end the episode, because we're not ending yet, I wanted to talk about maybe what some of your favorite movies are that have queer characters in them.
Oh, okay.
And this is hard because I was trying to think about mine, and there are some movies I've seen with queer characters. I can't say any are my favorite.
Yeah, we were quickly talking about this off air and you were like, oh, how do I?
The one that springs to mind for me that is the most standout is Disobedience with Rachel McAdams and Rachel Weisz.
I still haven't seen that one.
No. We spoke about it briefly in another episode.
Which I'm surprised because I love Rachel McAdams.
The thing that gets me about that is there probably are negative connotations surrounding it. I'm just looking at it from a viewer point of view. There's a lot of intimacy. Unfortunately, It does have religious undertones, although would you call it an undertone if it's at the forefront of the fucking movie?
No, it's just a tone.
Yeah, so it's heavily religious in the Jewish community. That's where it's set. But it's Orthodox.
Orthodox, yeah.
It's very set Orthodox Jewish.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of intimacy that you see on screen between the actresses, which obviously, let's face it, we all watch for that.
Yeah.
But it is problematic in a way.
That's the only way we were able to really get that content and feel that representation, which is seeing the intimacy.
Absolutely.
I guess even thinking now in the few movies or musicals that I'm about to mention, you don't really think about intimacy of just, I guess, from the very first early movie you spoke about, just a beautiful dance or just a normal conversation or just literally a normal anything.
Two men touching each other was an intimacy that a lot of people probably just wanted to see.
Yeah. This is weird because as we were talking, I went, oh, I can't think of any. And then I had 3 pop up.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's also weird that it's in a space where it's very, musicals are often known to be quite extravagant and flamboyant and I guess queer coded anyways.
Yeah.
So it's sad that this is the only sort of representation that I can really think of as well, that I was kind of going to go, oh yeah, I can do this. The first one for me, and I haven't watched as much, is called The Prom. And it's based on a girl who gets shunned for going to her prom because she wants to take a girl to the prom. And then these 5 actors come in and try and save the day, but they're only doing it to rebrand their image.
Right.
And they think helping this young girl,
it's a marketing thing.
Yeah, it's a marketing thing, will help them. So they're not really there to help her.
Yeah, they're there to help themselves. But the themes are there.
And in the end, she does end up taking the girl to the prom. They have their own separate prom because the school wouldn't allow it and everything. And there's a lot of hidden
Is it actually called a prom, or are you saying prom but saying it weird?
Oh, prom? I don't know. I don't know how you say it. But that's what it's called. And the whole theme is that the girl that she wants to take to the prom
I've given you a complex now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never heard it. I thought it was some like different
I don't know.
cultural thing you were talking about.
The prom, I guess she's kind of in the closet a bit because her mother's very like religious and is like, you have to be perfect. You're the perfect cheerleader. You're the perfect this. You're the perfect American. Sweetheart, you can't be gay. And in the end, obviously, it's a happy ending because it's a musical and everything. So it's a pretty ending, but I was like, oh, that's really sad. My next one that I honestly could watch over and over and over again is Rent. And the first time when you asked, I was like, what? I can't think of any. And then I'm like,
You're like, damn it, Rent.
yeah, of course. Stupid.
I haven't seen any of these.
No, but you will.
You need to culture me.
I will.
Yeah.
We'll culture each other. It's
Okay.
fine.
I'll culture you in horror movies.
No. So yeah, it's Rent. And for those who haven't seen Rent, Rent is a musical that was written by Jonathan Larson, who was a gay man who also suffered from AIDS. And he wrote a musical, I guess, about him and his life and his friends and these characters who were living on the city streets of New York where it was really hard to pay your rent, like you had no money. And I think the thing that I love about that movie is that it has every single kind of representation you could think of. And it was only released in 2003, I think. We'll have to check that.
And see, that's quite recent when you're talking about cinema dating back to like the 1800s.
Yeah. And
look, I'm impressed that there was gay representation in the 1800s.
Yeah, same. And in Rent, they had lesbians, they had drag queens, they had...
Man, I love a good drag queen.
Yeah, they had gay men, they had every single queer person that you could probably think of.
Like non-binary,
trans. Obviously, you use different terminology now to what they used back then. And I think, again, this started as a Broadway musical before it went to TV or movies or something. The thing that was really sad about it was that prior to opening night, Jonathan Larson passed away from AIDS. So he never got to see his
musical.
But it's like one of the longest living musicals, and it's like
it still tours now.
It's still immortal. It's still one of my most favorite ones of representation that I can think of. My final representation one is Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim Curry essentially in drag as Frankenfurter, and then all the different like queer innuendos and stuff that goes on in that musical.
Of course. And there's been so many since. Like, obviously, there are classics. And then today, especially in new cinema, we're seeing so many queer characters that aren't sidelined, which is amazing. So what we want to know before next week's episode is, what are some of your favorite queer movies?
Yes.
Because we want to get a list together. Maybe we'll make a big list.
A watch party list.
A watch party list. That would be great, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, let's do that. And I hope that everybody learnt a little bit about queer cinema today.
I learnt a lot. I did not know a lot of those things.
My biggest takeaway, I think, was the fact that I never really thought about Disney being queer coded in the early movies.
I think I think you didn't think that, or you didn't identify.
But then maybe you don't think that because you're a kid watching it, whereas as an adult, it's kind of like when you go back and watch something as an adult and there's all these adult jokes that slap you in the face that went over your head as a kid.
Disney is.
Disney's dark, man. Disney's
dark, and Disney is known for that. I was trying to think of a smarter word, but it didn't come to my head then.
Typical.
Yeah.
Still trying to find someone on your level, baby.
Yeah. So it hasn't happened yet.
Well, before we end this episode, I really want to end with this quote from Neil Patrick Harris's character in the production of It's a Sin, which says, "The history of the world says that men like us have always been hidden away in secret, but then there's the real world where we have been living together all this time." And that rings so true because queer people have always been here. It's the fact that no one has actually acknowledged us as that.
Yeah, that's true. I think you say that about every single queer person.
Yeah.
I know you said to finish, but Neil Patrick Harris is a great advocate and example of being involved in all of this, as a gay man, and he played Hedwig in that musical.
I think what is great about Neil Patrick Harris as an actor, some of the roles that he's played, is the fact that he played Barney in How I Met Your Mother, who was a total gigolo.
Oh, a very straight gigolo. And he does a great job at it. Like,
absolutely.
If you did not know that he was gay.
I didn't at the time of watching that show.
Yeah, you would not have a clue. Mm-hmm. Props to him. My favourite thing is also love watching Neil on the Oscars opening. Anyways, I'm rambling. I got invested.
Lauren's rambling. Well, with that, we'll see you next week and maybe we'll talk about some television.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, so maybe we won't. I don't know. It's coming though, because these are things, like we said in the beginning, we probably should have done these earlier on, but they take time to research and we don't want to give you any false information. But remember, hit us up with some of your favourite queer films or favourite queer coded characters that maybe we haven't thought about.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned.
Yeah. Well, until then, remember to stay gay, motherfuckers!
I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about just gay stuff.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just Gay Stuff. Make sure to follow us at Just Gay Stuff Podcast on all your socials and write to us with your stories at justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com.